The underlying problem with all of these is they're written from your perspective. I want this, I think this would be great for my show. But the person reading it is asking a totally different question. What's in this for me? And how much of my time does it take? There's a line where persistence crosses into desperation. One nudge says, I'm organized and I respect your time. 3 nudges says, I need this more than you. And that's not the energy you want anywhere near your podcast. Last episode, I talked about guest strategy, the 3 categories of guests and why a podcast is probably the most powerful networking tool that you're not using properly. If you haven't listened to that one yet, make sure you go back and listen first, because today's going to build directly on it. Because today, I want to get really practical. I'm going to give you the exact formula for writing a podcast invitation that busy, high-value people will actually say yes to. And look, I've been on both sides of this. I've sent hundreds of invitations and I've received hundreds. Some of the ones I've received are so bad, they genuinely make me cringe. Copy-paste templates where they didn't even change the name of the last person they sent it to. And after years of seeing both sides, I know exactly what separates the two. Let me walk you through the most common mistakes. And be honest with yourself here, because there's a good chance you've done at least one of these. I definitely have. So mistake number 1, generic flattery. I love your work and I think you'd be amazing for our show. That means nothing. Absolutely nothing. Everyone says this. It's the dear sir or madame of podcast invitations. The person reads it and immediately knows you sent the exact same message to 50 other people. Mistake number 2, no specific topic. I'd love to have you on to chat about your experience. Chat about what exactly? If you haven't thought about it enough to name it, why should they give you 30 minutes of their day? This signals zero preparation, and nobody wants to walk into an unfocused conversation with a stranger. Mistake number 3, no time commitment. You'd be amazed how many invitations don't mention how long the recording takes. Is this 15 minutes? Is it 2 hours? Busy people need to know what they're agreeing to. Don't make them guess. Don't make them reply just to ask a basic logistical question. Mistake number 4, it's too long. Anything over 200 words and you're asking the reader to do too much work. They're scanning on the phone between meetings. If they have to scroll through a wall of text to figure out what you're actually asking, they'll just close the email and forget about it. The underlying problem with all of these is the same thing. They're written from your perspective. I want this, I think this would be great for my show. But the person reading it is asking a totally different question. They're asking, what's in this for me? And how much of my time does it take? If you don't answer both of those questions quickly and clearly, it's a no. Or worse, it's a no reply. Here's the formula. 4 parts. Each one is doing a specific job, and I'm going to build a worked example as we go, using the leadership coach persona from the last episode so you can see exactly how the pieces fit together. Part 1, the specific reference. 1 to 2 sentences. Your job here is to prove that you actually know this person's work. Not, I've heard great things, something specific, something that shows you're actually engaged with what they do. So for our leadership coach, inviting a senior manager at a tech company, it might sound like this. Your recent LinkedIn post about the mistake most first-time managers make in their first 90 days really resonated with me, especially the point about confusing authority with influence. See how specific that is? The guest immediately knows this isn't a mass email. You read their stuff, you thought about it. That alone puts you ahead of 90% of the invitations they receive. Part 2, the show positioning. 1 to 2 sentences. Who listens and why those listeners would specifically care about this guest. You're answering the guest's unspoken question. Who am I speaking to, and is this audience worth my time? For a leadership coach, the leadership shift reaches mid-level managers in tech who are navigating the transition to senior leadership. Your experience leading a distributed team of 40 across 3 time zones is exactly the kind of real-world challenge they're trying to figure out. Now the guest can picture the audience. They can see exactly where they fit. And crucially, they can see that this is their kind of audience, not random, relevant. Part 3, the specific topic. Again, 2 to 3 sentences. This is where you show you've actually thought about the conversation, not your journey, not your experience, a specific angle that the guest would actually enjoy exploring. I want to specifically talk about your first 6 months of managing managers, when you go from leading a team to leading the people who lead teams. The skills that stopped working and the new ones that you had to develop. I think our listeners would particularly value hearing about how you handled giving feedback to someone who used to be your peer. That's a conversation the guest can already picture themselves having. It's not vague, it's not generic, it's something specific and interesting enough that they're already mentally rehearsing their answers. That's how you know the topic is right. Part 4, the logistics. Again, 1 to 2 sentences. Time required, format, what happens with the episode. Simple, clean, respectful. The recording is 30 minutes over Zoom. I'll send you the episode and a short video clip before it goes live so you can share it with your audience. 4 parts: specific reference, show positioning, specific topic, logistics. Keep it under 150 words total. I know that sounds short. It is short. That's the whole point. Respect their time in the invitation and they'll respect yours with a yes. Now, what happens when they don't respond? Because that's going to happen. Not everyone will say yes. Not everyone will even reply, and that's completely fine. Here's the follow-up protocol. Follow up once after 5 to 7 days. Just something brief like, just circling back on this, totally understand if the timing isn't right. That's it. No guilt, no pressure, no essay about why they should reconsider. If there's no response after 2 touches, the original and the nudge, move on. You've got 19 other names on your list. And look, I want to be really clear about this. Don't follow up 3 or 4 times. Don't send increasingly long emails trying to convince them. There's a line where persistence crosses into desperation, and that line is closer than most people think. 1 nudge says, I'm organized and I respect your time. 3 nudges says, I need this more than you. And that's not the energy you want anywhere near your podcast. The people who say no or don't respond, not your loss. Genuinely, the right guest will say yes, and 1 great conversation that turns into a real relationship is worth more than 10 reluctant guests who just showed up because you wore them down. Your assignment: take 3 names from the guest list you made after the last episode and write a personalized invite for each one using this 4-part formula. Specific reference, show positioning, specific topic, logistics. Under 150 words, then send them. Not next week, not when you feel ready. Send them today or tomorrow. See what happens. Next episode, we're completing the business development picture, how listeners actually become clients. But not just listeners, guests, community members, email subscribers. There are way more paths from podcast to revenue than most people realize. And I want to show you all of them. Thanks for listening to this episode of Smarter Podcasting. I'm Neil Mackay, the podcast guy. And don't forget, follow and subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Cheers.